May 9, 1941. On May 9, 1941, a 20-year-old Englishman stepped from HMS Bulldog onto the deck of a half-sunk German submarine, adrift in the mid-Atlantic. His name was Sub-Lieutenant David Balm, and boarding an enemy U-boat was not a tactic, it was a gamble. This is the story of the deadliest job in any war, a job in which 3 of every 4 men who took it never came home. In 1940, the U-boat looked unbeatable. By 1945, the sea had swallowed 785 of them, and nearly 30,000 of the men who sailed them. The weapon Germany began this war with a fleet built for one purpose: to starve an island. In 1939, the German Navy sent its submarines into the North Atlantic with a weapon that was fast, tough, and designed for the kill. The Type VI U-boat was a working boat, not a showpiece. A steel tube of diesels and torpedoes, built to slip through the ocean and strike from a place where the enemy could not answer back. In the summer of 1940, the boats went to work. The tactic was simple and terrible. At night, a U-boat ran on the surface, low in the water, almost invisible to the eye. The escorts sonar, the device called ASDIC, which could find a submarine under the water, could not see a boat on the surface at all. So the wolf packs waited for dark, the way a farmer waits for rain, and when the night came down on the Atlantic, they rose to the surface and went hunting. Convoy after convoy was torn apart. Tankers burned. Freighters went down in minutes, in oil and flame, and the voices of men who had signed on to carry beans and steel and fuel, not to die in the mid-Atlantic. A torpedo does not announce itself. There is a sound like a fist on iron, a shudder through the hull, and then the ship that stood in the column a minute before is a burning slick and a voice on the wind, and the sea closes over the rest without comment. For a long stretch, the U-boats were sinking merchant ships faster than the shipyards on either side of the ocean could replace them. And the island felt it. Britain needed everything from outside: food, fuel, the raw materials of a war. The wolf packs were cutting her off from the world. In the blackest months, the nation stood months from starvation. Not defeat, starvation. The slow, quiet end of a country that could not feed itself. And what did the Germans lose that year? 24 boats. 24, while the sinkings soared and the wolf packs grew fat. But Britain's answers were not going to be bigger boats. Britain's answers were science, and science, unlike a ship, can be stolen. The men war on a U-boat began with a choice. Every man who sailed one was a volunteer. The U-boat arm drew close to 40,900 men over the course of the war. Volunteers, all of them, screened like athletes and trained like tradesmen, because a steel tube full of 90 men had no room for a man who could not close a valve in the dark. Dönitz called his submariners the glorious service, and he was not merely flattering them. They were an elite, the Navy's finest officers, hardest mechanics, brightest electricians, crammed into a tube a few hundred feet long, with bunks shared in shifts and air that went foul, and rations that went stale, and no way out except the hatch they came in by. Life below was a parody of life above. You slept where you were told, ate when the watch allowed, breathed the same air 90 men had already breathed. The days were the enemy almost as much as the escorts. Days of oil and diesel and the groan of the hull, of waiting that sharpened into superstition, of men who had learned to speak in murmurs because the sea could hear. And then, without warning, an hour of terror. Waiting was the job. But the men carried something that made them dangerous. They believed they were invincible. The happy time had taught them that. Their boats struck and vanished, and the wolf pack had made them the terror of the sea lanes. The Atlantic would teach them otherwise. But before the Atlantic could teach them, the fleet had to be used. And it was used according to an idea, a doctrine, a machine of darkness run by one man from the coast of France. The doctrine. The man was Karl Dönitz, the admiral who commanded the U-boat arm, and from a headquarters at Lorient on the French coast, he ran the war beneath the waves. His idea had a German name, Rudeltaktik, which translates to the pack of wolves. The old way, a single submarine roaming alone, hoping to meet a ship, was replaced. Now the boats sailed in groups, spread across the sea like the teeth of a rake. When one boat found a convoy, it did not attack alone. It sat in the water, hidden, and sent the word out across the ocean. And every boat within reach turned and came. One boat finds the convoy. All boats converge. Think about the geometry of it. A convoy was guarded by escorts, but the escorts were few because Britain was short of everything, including the fast ships that could chase a wolf which refused to be caught. And the ocean was vast, and a pack of a dozen boats arriving together could overwhelm any screen. They struck at night, on the surface, where the sonar was blind. They came in waves, and when an escort turned to drive one wolf away, 3 more were closing on the other side. The system worked. For 2 years, it worked horribly well. The tonnage sank. Britain lived on rationing and hope, and the lifeline across the Atlantic, the food, the fuel, the steel, and later the soldiers and the bombers that would carry the war back to Europe, hung by a thread in a cold sea. But the wolf pack had a secret weakness, buried in the very way it fought. To hunt, you must know where the prey is. A U-boat had to speak, to send its signal into the air, to call its brothers across 1,000 miles of ocean. And whatever a man sends into the air, another man can hear. The Germans knew this, of course. They trusted their code, a machine cipher, mathematical, unbreakable, so they believed, by any mind or any machine on Earth. So the wolf pack kept speaking, and somebody, in a quiet English country house, was listening. The stolen secret. He was 20 years old, and he had 2 minutes to decide. Remember the young man from the beginning, David Balme, on the deck of HMS Bulldog, looking at a German submarine that had surfaced and been abandoned, not yet lost, but drifting, sinking by the stern, his for the taking. Boarding an enemy submarine was in no manual. It was not a tactic. It was a gamble against a clock. Get aboard before she went down, take everything that could be carried, get off before she dragged him under with her. He dropped onto the casing of a boat that could founder at any moment, her crew captured or adrift, her secret still below, her stern already taking the sea. He moved the way a man moves when he has decided not to be afraid, quickly and without comment. He was 20 years old, and he had 2 minutes to decide. He climbed down, and what he took from the dying U-110 changed the war. The Enigma cipher machine, complete with its codebooks, the heart of every German secret on the Atlantic. Because a secret is only as strong as the belief that it cannot be stolen, and the Germans had believed. Now, in a red brick country house in England, codebreakers began to read the Wolfpack's mail. The operation had a name, Ultra, and every convoy gained a guardian the U-boats could not see. Their own orders, read before they were obeyed. Convoys were not merely warned, they were rerouted around the packs, steered on courses that seemed miraculous to the sailors who sailed them. Merchant ships arrived where the boats had just passed, and the boats searched where the ships had just gone. The ocean was still vast, but it was no longer empty of information. But Ultra was not the only theft. Science was being stolen from the sea and the sky as well. The Germans owned the night until the Allies built radar on a new wavelength, a shortwave radar so fine it could find not a ship but a periscope, a conning tower, a surfaced U-boat in the dark. Centimetric radar stripped the night away, and the Wolfpack's favorite hour became the most dangerous hour of the day. And there was the radio. A U-boat had to speak to hunt, but the Allies had a device called HFDUF, high-frequency direction finding, that could fix a boat's position the instant that boat spoke, from hundreds of miles away, in minutes. Speak and be found. The Wolfpack's greatest strength, its voice, had become its leash. The Germans did not know. They still trusted the machine, the dark, the code. They sent their boats out with confidence, into an ocean that was no longer empty, but full of watchers. But reading the wolf is not yet killing the wolf. Knowing where the enemy is not the same as sinking him. The killing would take a month that began with a convoy named ONS-5, 42 merchant ships, and the longest night the escorts had ever faced. The convoy, April 29, 1943. The merchant ships of convoy ONS-5 sailed out into the North Atlantic. 42 ships, slow, laden, and alone, in a sea the wolf packs owned. They did not stay alone for long. The boats found them, the signal went out, and the packs began to close. And this time, the watchers were watching. Escort Group B7 was commanded by a man named Peter Gretton, and Gretton understood what his predecessors had not, that the convoy's job was not to dodge the wolves, but to hunt them. His ships were not just carrying cargo. They were bait. Bait with teeth. The new doctrine reversed everything the escorts had been built to do. Charge the torpedo tracks, attack the attacker, treat the wolf as the prey. The battle ran for 8 days, from the 29th of April to the 6th of May. The wolf packs threw everything they had at ONS-5. They came at night, on the surface, in the old way, in the happy time way. And for 8 days, the escorts met them with the new science, radar that saw the dark, huff-duff that heard the whispers, and a doctrine that said, do not run, attack. The convoy paid. That is the part no one should forget. 12 ships went down, 12 freighters and tankers, with their crews, their cargoes, their names that history does not always keep. The Atlantic took its toll in the old coin of drowned sailors and burning oil. And the wolves paid too. 6 U-boats were sunk. 7 more limped home, damaged, broken, or luckier than they deserved. In one convoy battle, the fleet that had swaggered through the happy time lost more boats than it had lost in entire years of the war. The escorts had blooded the pack. The men who came home from ONS-5 carried something the Atlantic had never given the escorts before, proof that the pack could be beaten, and every convoy that crossed in the first days of May carried their example forward, like a lit fuse drawing toward the month's end. The pieces were in place, the science, the reading, the escort crews who had learned to fight instead of flee, and the men who ran the Atlantic War looked at the calendar and understood that a reckoning was coming, a single month that would decide whether the wolf pack was a weapon or a memory. That month was 1 week away, and no one in Berlin knew. Hit subscribe right now, because what happens next is Black May, the month that breaks the wolf packs forever. Do not go anywhere. Black May, May 1943. The boats went out as they always had, from the French bases, with the old rituals of the Atlantic War. The signals went out, and the sea began to close over them. It happened quietly at first, the way catastrophe always does. A U-boat would be there, and then it would not be. A signal would go out and go silent. A pack would rendezvous, and boats would be missing from the muster. The ocean does not keep records. It simply takes. In the first days, the losses were heavy. By the end of the month, they were beyond anything the fleet had known. 41 U-boats lost in a single month. 41. In 1940, the fleet had lost 24 boats in an entire year of triumph. In May of 1943, it lost 41 in 31 days, more than 1 a day, every day, all month. New boats were leaving the yards, and they were being consumed as fast as they were born. The fleet was burning. And at the headquarters at Lorient, the admiral watched his empire dissolve. Karl Dönitz had built the wolf packs, commanded them, believed in them. His officers brought him the reports, boat by boat, missing, lost, no survivors, cause unknown. The plotting board told the story no one wanted to read. The packs were going out, and they were not coming back. Carrier groups and long-range bombers now flew from both shores of the ocean, and the middle of the sea once a sanctuary beyond the reach of every wing, was dotted with eyes. By the night of the 19th of May, the board had gone nearly silent, not because the war had paused, because there was nothing left to report. Boat after boat had gone down in the black water, with their crews, in the cold, under the depth charges and the radar-fixed attacks, and the aircraft that had finally closed the gap in the middle of the ocean. Somewhere beneath the Atlantic, a sun was going down, and his father was still giving orders. That night, a submarine named U-954 vanished with all hands. Aboard her was Peter Donitz, the admiral's own son. Karl Donitz did not yet know. He would learn, and the sea would not give the boy back. But that night, the father who ordered the boats out was still giving orders, because the war does not wait for grief. 5 days later, on the 24th of May, 1943, Donitz made the confession the war had been waiting for. He ordered the wolf packs to withdraw from the North Atlantic. Not a tactical adjustment, a surrender of the battlefield. The packs would never return in strength. The enemy that had seemed unbeatable had been beaten by the very things he had dismissed: a stolen code, a finer radar, convoys that learned to attack, and a gap in the ocean that the aircraft finally closed. The hunters had become the hunted. The ledger. Now the ledger. Now the number that is not a number, but men. Germany built, over the course of the war, 1,162 U-boats. By the end, 785 of them lay on the bottom of the sea, most of them with their crews inside. And the men, close to 40,900 volunteers served in the U-boat arm. Of those, roughly 28,000 died beneath the Atlantic, and 5,000 more were taken prisoner. Add the two together, and the arithmetic is terrible. To volunteer for the glorious service was, in the end, to bet your life on a coin that came up against you 3 times out of 4. The deadliest job in any war. Not nearly the deadliest. The deadliest. 3 of every 4 men who took it never came home. The happy time had promised glory. The ledger paid in drowning. Boat by boat, the files closed. U-954 lost with all hands, and 100 more whose names the sea kept. Their names are recorded, boat by boat, in the files of a navy that no longer exists. The ocean closed over them. The war did not pause. The U-boat arm lasted 2 more years, dying by inches, in the gray waters of what remained. When Germany surrendered in May of 1945, the surviving boats came in, the bases were overrun, and the men who remained were marched into prisoner-of-war cages. The glorious service ended not with a bang, but with a count. What it meant: how, then, did Germany lose 30,000 men beneath the Atlantic? Not in one battle, not in one storm. It lost them the way every empire loses an advantage. Slowly, then suddenly. In 1940, the wolf pack looked invincible. It owned the night. It owned the surface. It drowned the convoys, starved the island, and laughed at a sonar that could not see a boat that moved on top of the water. Remember the happy time, the boys who swaggered home from that year of triumph, sure that the ocean belonged to them. And then the answer came from outside the U-boat's entire theory of war, from a code stolen off a sinking boat, from a radar that lit the dark, from a listening system that turned the Wolfpack's own voice against it, and from escort crews who stopped running and started hunting. The enemy's edge did not collapse in a single explosion. It was dismantled, piece by piece, by men who refused to believe the miracle was unbreakable. And when it was gone, the Atlantic poured through the gap, and the men who had trusted the miracle paid the price of that trust. An empire's greatest asset, its best volunteers, its finest machines, its most beautiful secret, is not a shield, it is a target. There is a lesson in the ledger, written in the language of drowned men. An advantage is only a secret that has not yet been stolen. That is how Germany lost 30,000 men beneath the Atlantic. Subscribe and turn on notifications. because every week we tell you how America actually won its war. Like the video if it earned it. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from, and we will see you in the next one.